Hello everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. A new ad campaign is being rolled out by the Liberal Party, said to be part of a larger campaign to make up lost ground to the Conservatives. The first of the ads was released on Thursday, with a second ad following on Friday.
The Liberal team is fighting for you to build more homes and protect renters, to deliver dental care and free contraceptives and diabetes medications, to keep guns out of our communities, to make life more affordable with $10 a day childcare and the Canada Child Benefit, and to create new, well-paying jobs and build a thriving economy that works for everyone. That's real progress.
But will this new campaign be enough to turn public opinion? Will they be enough to end doubt in the Prime Minister's leadership? To talk about this, we're now joined by Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, Tonda MacCharles, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, and Joël-Denis Bellavance, Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse. Hello to the three of you.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, well, let's start there, and let's actually begin in caucus. When you see this campaign, because the Prime Minister was being criticized for not doing enough to respond to really horrible polling numbers, is this enough to quell the dissension or the critics within his own caucus, Bob?
I don't think it is. I mean, look, you still have a lot of people who feel that no matter what the Liberals do, they're not going to be able to overcome the Conservatives as long as Mr. Trudeau is the leader of the party, and that's simply because of leadership fatigue. But, you know, what the Liberals are trying to do is what they have been doing under Paul Martin, under Jean Chrétien, and under Pierre Elliott Trudeau when it comes to Conservatives. They haul out health care, that this is going to be taken away, and this week we're hearing nothing but abortion now. The only thing that's interesting, it just shows you how tired this government is. It didn't show it in that clip that you did, but one of the ads says we're not going back, which was
the first ad that was released on the Thursday.
Come on. I mean, are you that tired that you can't think of something better than what the Democrats are doing south of the border?
Yeah, it seemed a bit derivative when you heard that line. What do you make of it? Is it, again, the criticism is the Prime Minister and his team not doing enough to get out there in front of Canadians? Is this the start of something that will quell the rebellion?
I think that those who believe that their misfortunes are due to Mr. Trudeau being at the top will not be satisfied simply by the rollout of some ads. I think that they figure they've got a much tougher hill to climb than just that. So it might not be the answer, but it might be enough perhaps to motivate some of the others, the supporters of Trudeau, to sort of not question any longer what's going on and to sort of commit and work on, you know, the re-election effort. But no, it's long overdue, and you know, the Liberals have a lot more to worry about, right? They have to worry about the polling. They have to worry about how they're going to win in targeted seats. How are they going to fundraise? Now, the fundraising numbers that we saw this week showed that they, to my surprise, actually, I thought they would have shown a much steeper drop for the Liberals. In fact, they're doing as well as they did last year anyway, so even post those two by-election losses, still okay. But they're being way out-fundraised by the Conservatives, who are basically making double all the parties combined. So that's a big hill for any party to get over.
Joël-Denis?
Well, this might be too little, too late, because some of the MPs who were demanding Mr. Trudeau's leave, they were demanding that kind of ad and activity 2 years ago. And they were also specifically demanding that the party aim their attack at Mr. Poilievre, and that they try to define him before he was defining himself in front of the Canadian population. So to me, it might be a little bit too little, too late to reverse the trend that we have seen over the last 18 months, which definitely favored the Conservative Party. And as Bob mentioned, I think there is huge leadership fatigue. We say in French, l'usure du pouvoir, which I like a lot, because it's as long as you use power, people become fatigued with your decision. We've reached that point, and this is really hard to turn around for any Prime Minister.
And remember that this has been actually a very good week for Pierre Poilievre, maybe not around Parliament Hill, but out in the rest of the country by promising to get rid of the sales tax on new homes is something that's going to have
under $1 million.
Under $1 million. It's targeted to younger families, younger voters, which is what they have been going after for a considerable period of time. That is the kind of thing that sticks with people, not whether Parliament being paralyzed or whether, you know, the Tories or the threats to abortion, which is not a threat at all because he's been very clear we're not going to do anything on that. That kind of comes across, I think, to a lot of Canadians as hot air, but you know, you put something on the table that actually is going to have an impact on your life. That I think at the end of the week that the Conservatives have probably ended up in a stronger position.
Well, and to the Conservatives, you know, happiness, the housing advocates are applauding this move in terms of jump-starting people buying homes and even building homes. And it was interesting because when Pierre Poilievre asked the Prime Minister about this policy, he said, will you adopt this policy, abandon the rest? The Prime Minister tried to change the channel. Instead of answering that question directly, he went to, well, will you get security clearance, which is threatening all Canadians if you're not on top of foreign interference? Talk to us about the change of the channel there. It's almost like a back way of admitting, yeah, that was a good policy. I'm trying to find something else.
On Monday morning when the Conservatives rolled it out, I thought that's the perfect kind of policy for the Liberals to steal, which is one of the reasons why the Conservatives have been reticent about rolling out a lot of policy. They don't want ideas stolen before the election, and they think that the idea is to roll it out in a campaign or just before. So how successful was it in changing the channel? I think there still do remain a lot of questions around the security clearance and what Mr. Poilievre does or doesn't have access to, and what he should or shouldn't have access to, and how he should action that intelligence if he gets it. But it's not the kind of thing I think that resonates far beyond the Hill. A lot of us here are very interested in it. The politicians are interested in it. But I think the bread and butter issues are the things that grab voters' attention. But I don't think the security clearance story is dead or over. I think there is still lots of questions around that.
Yeah. Mr. Trudeau was not alone in raising that issue. Every minister that stood up after Mr. Trudeau, after he first said it on Wednesday, on Thursday and on Friday, raised and questioned why Mr. Poilievre was not getting his security clearance.
So does the Bloc and so does the NDP, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They all say question it.
And to your point,
significantly, the Indo-Canadian community. The two major Sikh groups were at a committee last night, and they are also saying, look, this is willful blindness not to want to know who in your party might be susceptible to whether it's Indian or Chinese foreign interference, particularly because we know from the report of a special group of parliamentarians that they allege that India had helped fund one of the leadership candidates. We don't know whether it was Mr. Poilievre or who it was. And those communities are really important because they're concentrated and can vote in a block, and that can make a big difference to a number of ridings. So I still, myself, I don't understand why Mr. Poilievre just doesn't go and have a security clearance.
Well, I think what was really interesting around this is we heard Michael Chong actually publicly say that they're afraid the Liberals will weaponize whatever they learn about Poilievre or whatever the government or the security apparatus learns about him. Right? He backtracked on it, but it was out there. He said
well,
it.
And the Liberals are trying to make hay out of that too, right? By suggesting there's something he's trying to hide.
There was a lot of, they had the ring of truth.
Well,
it had the ring of truth that they fear that somehow the Liberals would make hay with it.
For one reason, we saw how Trudeau used his final appearance at the Public Interference Commission to say, you know, I would never use intelligence against a political opponent. Oh, but by the way, I have credible intelligence that the Conservatives are involved.
And what weakens Mr. Poilievre's case in this file is the fact that Yves-François Blanchet, a separatist leader, got his security clearance. It was accepted recently, and he will go and see those documents that Mr. Poilievre doesn't want to see. So, to me, it adds the pressure, the fact that Mr. Blanchet just said that, yes, I got it.
And there is another way for the government to provide the names to Mr. Poilievre rather than a security
Which
clearance.
the Prime Minister said he's trying to get advice
And
on
that
as
is
to how he
through
might
what
do
is
that.
called a threat reduction measure, which CSIS is allowed to be able to tell people, in this particular instance, we are concerned about specific threats to your party from some of these people members who may potentially be wittingly helping a foreign government. They can tell them that.
But CSIS said this week also at committee that is not the preferred
one, absolutely.
method, that they would be able to be more open with a party leader who has the full clearance. So I think that, you know, how are we mere mortals to judge all of this? It seems it's a...
But to me, this would probably be one of the issues debated during the election campaign if M. Poilievre does not decide to get his security
Well, again,
clearance.
you know, interestingly, Pierre Poilievre, the Conservatives have a good week with the housing announcement, the Trudeau government trying to change the channel with security. And they probably won't change the channel next week because it's the U.S. election. That'll take a lot of the auction out of the room. But afterwards, we'll see what type of legs it has. Yeah. But, you know, speaking of the U.S. election, before we're done, I do want to get some comment here because Kelly Craft is a former ambassador to Canada from the United States, Donald Trump's appointee. And while she was in Ottawa in a public policy forum, she was talking about how if Trump is elected, Canadians better pony up cash because he's going to want to see more movement, a faster timeline on NATO commitments, as well as Arctic defense. We've heard the government talk about being ready at the trade front. Is it ready on the defense front to take on that type of criticism if Donald Trump wins?
Well, I don't think it's just going to be Donald Trump. I mean, the Biden administration has also been saying that. So was Obama. And frankly, there isn't any more patience for this government. Not to put more money into national defense, but also into the Arctic. So if it is Donald Trump, I think for sure we're going to have to, because you never know what the guy's going to do. So we probably are going to have to put more money down. But I think we'd have to do this whoever is elected, because the Americans are really pushing Canada, all of our allies, frankly.
It's a bipartisan issue down south of the border, and it should be a commitment up here because under Harper, we committed to the 2%, but Mr. Poilievre has not committed to that, spending that amount. So it's a challenge for Canada as a whole, whoever comes into power in the next election here, because below the border, both parties want us to up our game.
Yeah. It's interesting because the the directeur parlementaire du budget, the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, released a report this week showing that you would have to double spending on defense to reach the commitment that Mr. Trudeau made in Washington at the NATO summit in July. Now,
which is a timeline many years down the road.
Exactly, it's years down the road, but it's still doubling the spending in military in 8 years is a big task. And it just shows that any government that will be in power in the coming years will have very difficult budget decisions to make because it's a big chunk of money going from $41 billion this year to $82 billion in 8 years. It's a big jump in investing. And where do we find that money when you have a deficit?
Something's going to have to be cut.
Yeah, where do you find that money?
Or go into deep deficit spending.
You do have a deficit right now.
Or taxes.
Yeah, so difficult choices ahead to fulfill that commitment.
Remember when you were talking about surpluses? Remember those days?
Long gone.
Long gone. Okay. Bob, Tonda, Joël-Denis, thank you very much.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you.